The shuttle's engines hummed steadily as Adam Thorne leaned back in his seat, gazing out at the distant planet of HFY. The world hung in the void, its pale green atmosphere swirling gently like the surface of an alien marble. Adam glanced at his co-pilot, a lanky, dark-haired man named Tobias. They'd met months ago on a derelict station, and though their partnership was still new, they'd quickly settled into a comfortable rhythm. "So, what's the plan?" Tobias asked, tapping the console in front of him. "We stop, refuel, and get out? Or are you planning on playing the hero again?" Adam chuckled. "Not planning on sticking around. We've got bigger fish to fry a couple of systems over." Tobias smirked. "Yeah, sure. That's what you said on Kesselis 4, and we ended up staying a month. That was different. We needed the work. And the time before that? What was it, Veltra? Some little mining colony with a big power grid problem?" Adam shrugged. "Look, I can't help it if people ask for help. This place will be different. Just fuel up, grab some supplies, and move on." Tobias gave him a skeptical look but said nothing. The shuttle began its descent, slipping into HFY's atmosphere with only a minor shudder. The small port town where they'd landed was quiet, its buildings low and curved, designed to blend into the rolling hills of the planet's surface. The Thalvine were a reclusive people known for their graceful architecture and glowing skin. Even as Adam and Tobias stepped onto the landing pad, a few of the local inhabitants stopped to glance at them with wary, luminescent eyes. "I'll handle the refueling," Tobias said, shouldering a worn canvas bag. "You do whatever it is you do." "Much appreciated," Adam said. He adjusted his jacket and stepped into the main square, drawing a few more curious looks. The town felt peaceful, almost untouched by the larger conflicts that raged elsewhere in the galaxy. But something was off. Adam noticed it in the way the Thalvine's bioluminescent patterns seemed muted, their posture tense as they moved through the narrow streets. He found himself at a small cafe-like establishment where a few locals set nursing drinks that glowed faintly in the dim light. As Adam took a seat at the counter, the Thalvine barkeep, a tall, silver-skinned man, gave him a measured look. "Not many outsiders come here," the barkeep said in a melodic voice. "Just passing through," Adam replied. "We needed fuel and a bit of rest before moving on." The barkeep nodded slowly, his glowing patterns flickering briefly. "You may find that HFY has its own pace. Things don't move as quickly here as they do elsewhere." Adam smiled. "Sometimes slower is better." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of raised voices outside. Adam glanced toward the doorway, catching sight of a group of Thalvine in what appeared to be a heated argument. Two men stood face to face, their hands gesturing animatedly, while others looked on nervously. Adam's instincts kicked in. He was no stranger to tense situations, and while he had no intention of sticking around, he couldn't ignore the possibility of trouble brewing. The barkeep sighed, his glowing patterns dimming. "It's been like this for weeks now. Disputes over water distribution. Our wells have been running low, and the council hasn't been able to reach a compromise." Adam leaned forward, his interest piqued. "No compromise at all?" "Not yet," the barkeep said, shaking his head. "And every day it gets worse. I fear it won't stay just words for long." Adam considered this for a moment, then stood. "Thanks for the drink." He stepped outside, finding Tobias unloading supplies near the shuttle. "Something's off here," Adam said. Tobias looked up, squinting in the sunlight. "What, you mean the glowing people arguing in the square?" "Yeah, I noticed. They're fighting over water." Tobias raised an eyebrow. "And? Not our problem. We get the fuel and we're out of here. Isn't that what you said?" Adam hesitated. "Yeah, that's what I said. But what?" Adam didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned back toward the square. The argument had escalated. One of the men shoved the other, and a third figure, a woman with a tall, graceful posture and a stern expression, stepped between them. Adam recognized her immediately. She'd been at the edge of the square earlier, watching him and Tobias with a sharp, curious gaze. "Wait here," Adam said, walking toward the commotion. Tobias called after him, but Adam was already moving. As he approached, he caught snippets of the argument. "Been hoarding the eastern well for weeks now," one man shouted. "We're just taking what's ours." "The council needs more time," the woman snapped back. Her voice was calm but firm, cutting through the noise. "If you escalate this, you'll jeopardize everything." Adam stopped a few steps away, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Excuse me, don't mean to intrude, but maybe there's a way to talk this out before it goes any further." The woman turned her piercing gaze on him. Her glowing patterns pulsed softly as she studied him. "You're not from here." "No, I'm not. Name's Adam. Just passing through. But I've seen what happens when things like this spiral out of control. Maybe I can help." One of the men snorted. "What could an outsider possibly know about our problems?" Adam shrugged. "Maybe nothing, but I've seen disputes like this before. And sometimes all it takes is someone who isn't in the middle of it to help people find common ground." The woman regarded him for a long moment before nodding. "My name is Alessa. I'm an emissary for the council. If you're willing, I could use another perspective." Adam smiled faintly. "Happy to help." The other men grumbled but didn't protest as Alessa led Adam a short distance away. Tobias, who had been watching the exchange from the sidelines, joined them. He gave Adam a skeptical look. "You just couldn't keep your mouth shut, could you?" "This is worth our time," Adam said. "We might even learn something." "Sure, let's learn all about the glowing water crisis," Tobias said dryly. Alessa ignored him, focusing on Adam. "The wells that supply this town have always been communal, but recent droughts have made it harder to maintain balance. Some families are taking more than their share, and the council hasn't been able to enforce fair distribution." Adam nodded. "What happens if the council can't step in?" "The disputes will escalate," Alessa said simply. "And if it comes to violence?" She didn't finish the thought. Adam didn't need her to. He exchanged a glance with Tobias, who sighed heavily. "Fine. What do you need us to do?" Alessa's bioluminescent patterns brightened slightly, a signal of cautious hope. "Come with me to the council chamber. If we can present an unbiased voice, it might sway the factions toward compromise." Adam glanced at Tobias, who rolled his eyes. "Yeah, sure. Why not? We're already here." Together, they followed Alessa toward the council building, the weight of the situation settling over them. Adam couldn't help but feel they were stepping into something far bigger than a simple refueling stop. Chapter 2, Paths Entwined. Adam leaned back in the stiff council chamber chair, watching the assembled Thalvine delegates argue with increasing volume. Though their melodious language carried a certain beauty, it was hard to appreciate when every speaker seemed to be shouting over the last. Alessa stood at the center of the semicircular table, her calm voice cutting through the cacophony as she tried to restore order. Tobias, seated beside Adam, whispered under his breath, "They're as bad as the colonial parliament." "Worse," Adam muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "At least the parliament adjourns for lunch." "Think they'll sort this out before we die of old age?" "Doubt it," Adam said. "Let's see what Alessa does." Tobias snorted softly. "I've seen council meetings go round in circles before. Trust me, we're in for a long haul." Alessa shot them a sharp glance, her bioluminescent patterns flickering slightly as if she'd overheard. Adam straightened, hoping his sheepish grin would smooth things over. She turned back to the council members, her voice steady. "We cannot solve this by continuing the same arguments. We need a new approach." One of the older Thalvine delegates shook his head, his patterns glowing faintly. "And what would you suggest, Alessa? That we simply hand over the eastern well to the eastern faction and let the rest of us wither?" "Of course not," Alessa said evenly. "But there are compromises to be made. If both sides—" A tall Thalvine with bright, sharp patterns slammed a hand on the table. "Compromise is impossible. We've been shorted for months. Why should we give up what little we have left?" Adam leaned toward Tobias. "Looks like you were right about the long haul." Tobias smirked. "Told you." Before Alessa could respond, Adam stood up, drawing several pairs of glowing eyes. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "But maybe it'd help if someone from outside weighed in?" The older delegate frowned, his patterns dimming. "What would an outsider know about our situation?" "Not much," Adam admitted. "But sometimes it helps to have someone who's not caught up in the history. I can see both sides here. One group feels like it's been taking the short end of the stick for months. The other feels like giving any more means losing what little they have. Nobody wants to back down because you all think it's a zero-sum game." The room fell silent. Even Tobias looked mildly impressed. Alessa tilted her head slightly, the glow of her patterns softening. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you stop looking at it as a fight over who gets the biggest piece of the pie," Adam said. "Maybe there's a way to make the pie bigger." "Bigger pie," Tobias muttered under his breath. "I swear, you've been hanging around too many diplomats." Ignoring Tobias, Adam stepped closer to the center of the room. "Look, on some frontier colonies, we've had water disputes before. Instead of fighting over one well, we worked together to set up additional sources. Might mean pulling resources from different factions, sharing tech, even bringing in outside help if needed. But if everyone contributes, everyone benefits. The tall delegate crossed his arms. And what makes you think we would trust outsiders to handle our water? Because I'm not here to take anything from you, Adam said firmly. I'm just suggesting a way forward. Alessa's been trying to find a solution, but she can't do it alone. You all have to meet her halfway. The room buzzed with quiet murmurs. Alessa's gaze flicked to Adam, her expression unreadable. Then she turned back to the council members. It's worth considering. If we can bring in neutral expertise, upgrade our infrastructure, and share the resources we have more efficiently, we might avoid further conflict. The older delegate's glow brightened faintly. We would need assurances. Guarantees that our contributions wouldn't be taken advantage of. That's fair, Adam said. Set up agreements, oversight. Keep everyone honest. But the alternative is more fighting, more division. No one wins that way. Tobias leaned closer to Adam. I can't believe you just turned a room full of bickering delegates into a committee. What's next? Mandatory lunch breaks. Don't tempt me, Adam replied quietly. The council deliberated for what felt like hours. Alessa stood firm, fielding questions, clarifying points, and occasionally turning to Adam for a word of support. Tobias, for his part, mostly stayed out of it, though he did make a few sarcastic remarks under his breath that Adam ignored. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the older delegate raised a hand. We'll consider this proposal. It's not perfect, but it may be better than the path we're on now. Alessa inclined her head. Thank you. This is a first step. Adam let out a slow breath. Tobias patted him on the shoulder. Well, look at you. The great mediator. I didn't do it alone, Adam said. He glanced at Alessa, who was speaking with a few of the delegates in hushed tones. She caught his eye, and for a moment her patterns glowed more brightly, a subtle acknowledgement of their shared effort. Once the council session concluded, Alessa approached Adam and Tobias in the corridor outside. I appreciate your input. It's rare to see the council reach any form of agreement so quickly. Glad I could help, Adam said. Though I'm not sure how long it'll last. It's a start, she said. And that's more than we've had in weeks. Tobias folded his arms. So, what now? Are we supposed to stick around and play consultants? Alessa smiled faintly. You've already done more than enough. But if you're willing to stay a bit longer, I could use your perspective as we begin implementing these changes. Adam glanced at Tobias, who groaned. Why'd I feel like I'm going to regret this? Because you will, Adam said with a grin. But it beats sitting around doing nothing. Alessa nodded. Then let's get started. There's much to do and not much time to do it. Chapter 3, From the Stars, Trust. Adam sat cross-legged on a thick cushion in Alessa's modest home, its curved walls and organic materials a stark contrast to the utilitarian starships he knew so well. Tobias leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, his skeptical gaze fixed on the glowing patterns that danced along Alessa's skin as she spoke. This is the schematic for the well systems in the eastern quadrant, she said, projecting a translucent image into the air from a small handheld device. If we can divert some of the flow using additional intake channels here and here, it should stabilize output without overtaxing the main reservoirs. Tobias frowned. Sounds nice on paper. But do you have the parts for that kind of retrofit? We're not exactly on a core world here. Alessa tilted her head, her bioluminescent markings shifting to a softer glow. We have enough to begin the modifications. It's not perfect, but it will buy us time to implement larger solutions. Adam nodded, studying the projection. What about manpower? You're going to need teams to handle the construction, maintain the existing systems, and monitor flow rates. We've already started forming work crews, Alessa replied. Each faction has agreed to provide labor, but their trust in one another is still tenuous. Let me guess, Tobias said dryly. They're going to argue over who gets the better shifts, who does the harder jobs, and who ends up with the credit. Alessa offered a small smile. It's possible. Which is why we'll need to be present to oversee the initial phases. If they see us working together, outsiders and Thalvine alike, it may encourage them to do the same. Adam glanced at Tobias, who let out a resigned sigh. You really know how to rope us into these things, don't you? Think of it as an adventure, Adam said. Beats sitting in the shuttle all day. I liked sitting in the shuttle, Tobias muttered, but he pushed off the doorway and joined them at the projection. As the three of them pored over the schematics, the discussion turned more practical. Adam asked about the structural integrity of the intake channels, Tobias questioned the placement of flow regulators, and Alessa explained how the Thalvine's organic technology interfaced with more conventional materials. They debated and refined the plan until it felt solid enough to present to the work crews. When they finally stepped outside, the twin sons of HFY were low in the sky, casting the rolling hills in golden light. A small group of Thalvine workers had gathered near the eastern well, their glowing patterns faint in the dimming sunlight. Adam took a deep breath and approached them, Tobias and Alessa at his side. "Good evening," Alessa began, her voice calm and steady. "I appreciate you all coming here. I know this is new territory for many of you, working alongside those you might see as rivals. But today is the start of something different. We're here to ensure everyone has access to the water they need, and that begins with cooperation." The workers exchanged uncertain glances, their glow flickering. Adam stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of openness. "I know some of you probably don't trust us yet. We're strangers and you've got every right to be cautious. But we're not here to take sides or tell you what to do. We just want to help make things better for everyone." One of the workers, a tall Thalvine man with sharp patterns that flickered like lightning, stepped closer. "You say that, but how do we know you won't favor one side over the other? How do we know you'll leave when the work is done?" Adam met the man's glowing gaze. "I can't promise I'll stay forever. That's not my place. But I can promise you this, while I'm here, I'll do everything I can to make sure this project works for all of you. No favoritism, no hidden agenda. Just results." There was a pause, then another worker spoke. "We've heard promises before. They don't always last." "Fair enough," Tobias said, stepping in with a grin. "But you haven't heard ours yet. Let's put it this way, if we screw this up, we've got to face you afterward. That's motivation enough, don't you think?" A few chuckles broke the tension and the workers' glowing patterns brightened slightly. Alessa took the opportunity to refocus the group. "If you're willing to give us a chance, we'll start by preparing the intake channels and flow regulators. The work won't be easy, but together we can stabilize the system. From there, we'll keep improving until the water flows as it should." Slowly, the workers began to nod. Adam caught Alessa's eye and gave a small, encouraging smile. She returned it, her patterns shimmering briefly before she turned back to the group. "Let's get to work," she said. The next several days were a blur of activity. Adam, Tobias, and Alessa divided their time between overseeing the construction, troubleshooting technical issues, and mediating disputes among the workers. Tobias proved surprisingly adept at diffusing arguments with his sharp wit and knack for finding common ground. Adam focused on the technical side, lending his engineering experience to ensure the modifications were done correctly. Alessa remained the steady voice of reason, guiding the project with her calm authority and earning the workers' respect one step at a time. One evening, after a long day of labor, the three of them sat together near the well's edge. The twin moons were high, their pale light casting soft shadows across the landscape. Adam leaned back against a rock, letting out a contented sigh. "Not bad," he said. "We might actually pull this off." "We might, is the best you can do?" Tobias asked, tossing a small stone into the water. "I'm pretty sure we're killing it out here." "Optimism doesn't suit you," Adam said with a grin. Alessa chuckled softly. "I'd say cautious optimism is appropriate. We've made progress, but there's still a long way to go." "Spoken like a true leader," Tobias said, raising an imaginary glass. "To progress and to not losing our minds in the process." Adam rolled his eyes but joined in the mock toast. "I'll drink to that." The three of them shared a quiet laugh, the tension of the day fading into the cool night air. For a moment, the differences that had seemed so stark, Thalvine and Terran, locals and outsiders, felt unimportant. They were meant to the intake channels had proven effective and the water flow had stabilized slightly. But the tension between factions remained. Alessa stood at the center of the worksite, her glowing patterns shifting gently as she instructed the teams. Adam and Tobias, never ones to back down from a hard day's work, joined in the hands-on effort. Tobias leaned against a tool crate, wiping sweat from his brow. "You ever think we're just one blown gasket away from watching this whole thing fall apart?" Adam smirked, pulling a hydrospanner from his belt. "That's the spirit. Keep thinking positive." "Oh, I'm positive. Positive that this is the most insane thing you've dragged me into." "Don't act like you're not enjoying it," Adam said, stepping into the open intake channel. The morning light reflected off the water trickling through the freshly cut grooves. "Enjoying it?" Tobias chuckled. "If you'd told me a year ago that I'd be knee-deep in alien water systems, I'd have called you crazy." "Well, you're here now," Adam said, tightening a fitting on the flow regulator. "So stop whining and hand me that sealant." Tobias tossed him a small cartridge, his smirk lingering. "You really think we're making a difference?" "I don't think it, I know it," Adam replied. He glanced over at the workers in their distinctive robes and glowing skin. They wouldn't still be here if they didn't believe it too. Tobias grunted, not entirely convinced, but he kept working. Alessa approached, her soft footsteps barely audible over the murmur of the crew. How are the adjustments coming along? Slowly, Adam said, straightening up. But they're coming along. Flow's steady for now, but I wouldn't call it a permanent fix. It doesn't have to be permanent, Alessa said. Just long enough to buy us time for more substantial upgrades. And long enough for the factions to learn how to work together, Adam added. She nodded. Exactly. Tobias looked between them, raising an eyebrow. You two are dangerously optimistic. But hey, I'll keep turning wrenches if it means I don't have to listen to more council debates. Alessa's patterns glimmered in what Adam had learned was her equivalent of a smile. That's all I ask. The three of them moved on to the next section of the system, overseeing the installation of additional regulators and reinforcing the newly constructed channels. Tobias found himself working alongside a burly Thalvine named Varek, whose glowing patterns pulsed brightly as they struggled to secure a particularly stubborn piece of piping. Mind giving me a hand here, Terran? Varek grunted, straining against the pipe's resistance. Tobias rolled his eyes but stepped in to help. You don't have to sound so enthusiastic about it. Varek chuckled, his voice deep and resonant. Trust doesn't come easy. But I'll admit you're not as useless as I thought. Gee, thanks, Tobias said, grimacing as they pushed the pipe into place. Adam watched from a few feet away, sharing a glance with Alessa. Baby steps. She nodded. It's progress. By midday, the work crews had settled into a rhythm. Arguments were rare, and the once constant tension had faded to a low hum. Adam and Tobias worked side by side with the Thalvine, sharing tools, advice, and the occasional good-natured jab. Alessa continued to oversee the entire operation, stepping in to mediate disputes and ensure everything stayed on track. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the workers gathered for a break near the newly upgraded channels. The air was filled with quiet conversation, the glow of the Thalvine patterns softly illuminating the scene. Adam leaned against a support column, taking a long drink from his canteen. This feels different, he said quietly to Tobias. How so? Tobias asked, tossing a small stone into the water below. Feels like we're not just fixing a machine, Adam said. Feels like we're building something more. Something that'll last. Tobias snorted. You always get like this after a long day. Next you'll be talking about how we're making history. Maybe we are, Adam said. Maybe we're just helping people who couldn't help themselves before. Tobias shook his head, but his smirk betrayed a hint of agreement. You've got a way of turning a simple job into a crusade. You know that? I'll take that as a compliment, Adam said with a grin. Alessa approached, her movements graceful even after a long day of work. She glanced between the two men. We've made excellent progress. The crews are working together more smoothly than I expected. They're not half bad, Tobias admitted. Once you get past all the glowing and the distrust. I'll pass that along, Alessa said with a faint smile. Adam nodded toward the workers. They've come a long way in a short time. You've done a good job keeping everyone focused. You've both played a significant role, Alessa said. Your presence here has helped show them that cooperation is possible. Yeah, well, don't go writing any songs about us just yet, Tobias said, leaning back with a groan. We still have plenty of work to do. Alessa's patterns flickered warmly, a Thalvine gesture of amusement. Fair enough, but I appreciate what you've done so far. The three of them stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the workers mingle and share stories. Adam noticed Varek talking with one of the younger Thalvine, gesturing animatedly as they laughed. The tension that had hung over the project like a storm cloud was dissipating, replaced by a tentative camaraderie. As night fell, the crew packed up their tools and headed back to the settlement. Adam, Tobias, and Alessa lingered by the water, their reflections rippling gently under the moonlight. I'm still not convinced this is going to last, Tobias said, his tone softer than before. Maybe it won't, Adam replied, but at least we gave them a chance. That's more than most people would have done, Alessa said quietly. The three of them stood together under the stars, the hum of the upgraded water system a reminder of what they'd accomplished. Though their time on Kara 5 wasn't over yet, they couldn't help but feel they'd crossed a threshold. For now at least, they'd made a difference. Chapter 5, a departure but not an ending. Adam stood on the shuttle's lowered ramp, gazing out at the makeshift camp that had become a second home over the past weeks. The freshly upgraded water system glinted in the morning light, a quiet testament to what the crew had achieved together. Tobias stepped beside him, arms crossed, his usual smirk replaced by a thoughtful expression. "Hard to believe it's actually working," Tobias said. "For a while there, I thought we'd end up scrapping the whole thing." "Me too," Adam admitted, brushing a hand through his hair. "But here we are. And they'll keep it running." "You sure about that?" Tobias asked, raising an eyebrow. Adam nodded. "It's their system now. They've taken ownership of it." Tobias glanced toward the gathering of Thalvine workers, their glowing patterns faint in the early daylight. "So what, we just walk away now? Let them sort it out on their own." "That was always the plan," Adam said. "We were just passing through, remember?" Tobias shook his head. "I don't know, man. Feels weird leaving after everything." "Because you care," Adam said, nudging him. "Admit it. You like these people." "I like not getting yelled at every time I suggest a change," Tobias shot back. "But yeah, I guess they're not so bad." As the two men exchanged a rare, quiet laugh, Alessa approached. Her glowing patterns shimmered softly, her expression unreadable. Adam turned to her, trying to keep his tone light. "I take it the council approved the final plans?" "They did," she said. "Your suggestion to set up a rotational maintenance team helped sway the undecided members." "I'm glad they saw reason," Adam said. "It'll make a big difference." Alessa paused, her gaze shifting to Tobias. "You've been invaluable. Both of you. I want you to know that." Tobias raised a hand. "Don't get all emotional on me now, Alessa. You'll ruin my tough guy reputation." A small smile flickered across her face. "I'll try to restrain myself." Adam chuckled. "It's true, though. We couldn't have done it without you leading the charge. I'm just glad we could help." For a moment, the three of them stood in silence, the distant hum of the water system filling the air. Adam finally broke the quiet, shifting on his feet. "Well, I guess this is goodbye. You're leaving now?" Alessa asked, her voice carefully steady. "Yeah," Adam said. "We've done what we came here to do. It's time to move on." Tobias glanced at Alessa, then back at Adam. "You sure you don't want to stick around a bit longer?" Adam hesitated, then nodded. "We've been here long enough. The Thalvine don't need us anymore." Alessa's gaze lingered on Adam. "You'll be missed." Adam offered her a small, lopsided smile. "I'll miss you too." Tobias cleared his throat, cutting through the heavy air. "So, what's the plan? Back to the usual, roaming the galaxy, fixing what we can, then moving on before anyone gets too attached?" "Pretty much," Adam said, his smile turning wry. "That's what we do." Alessa stepped closer, her glowing patterns brightening slightly. "Before you go, I have something for you." She held out a small, crystalline object that glimmered faintly in her hand. Adam took it carefully, studying its intricate design. "What is it?" "A shard from one of our ancient wells," Alessa said. "It's a symbol of life, growth, and change. I thought you might like something to remember Care of 5 by." Adam turned the shard over in his fingers, its faint luminescence reflecting in his eyes. "Thank you. I'll keep it with me." Tobias leaned in to get a better look. "You know that would make a great paperweight." Adam shot him a look. "You have no sense of sentiment, do you?" "I have plenty of sentiment," Tobias said with a grin. "I just keep it buried under sarcasm." Alessa shook her head, but her faint smile suggested she appreciated their banter. "I hope you both find success wherever your path takes you." "Thanks," Adam said. "I hope things stay smooth here." "They will," Alessa said. "Because of what you helped build." Adam gave her a long, searching look. Then he tucked the shard into a pocket, turned, and stepped back onto the shuttle. Tobias followed, casting one last glance at Alessa before disappearing inside. The ramp lifted slowly, sealing them away from the world they'd left behind. As the shuttle lifted off, Adam settled into the co-pilot's seat. Tobias was already at the controls, the engines humming smoothly. The planet's surface grew smaller, the horizon expanding into the dark expanse of space. "Well," Tobias said, breaking the silence. "What's next?" Adam stared out at the stars, the crystalline shard resting in his hand. "Not sure. But whatever it is, I think we'll be ready for it." "Sounds like a plan," Tobias said, adjusting the NAV console. "Just try not to land us in another water crisis, all right?" Adam chuckled, leaning back as the stars streaked past. "No promises." For a moment, they both sat quietly, the hum of the engines their only companion. But the silence wasn't heavy, it was calm, filled with the unspoken understanding that they'd done their part. Now it was time to move forward.